Hello, everyone. It's me, Jordyn Smith, the voice and the astrologer behind this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. For this video, I want to talk about Neptune and Saturn retrograde and Mercury entering into the sign of Leo, and also the new moon happening on the 5th, on Friday, in the sign of Cancer. Just to put it out there, this would be a great time if you're a Cancer and you want to sign up for the birthday special to look at these transits, as they can really be impacting you at this point in time. Again, that's the birthday special is on my website and booking, and I am doing these monthly birthday specials. Of course, Leo is up next, and I'm excited for that. I say this every time, but I genuinely love connecting and learning more about each one of you, and also it helps me understand these archetypes in different ways pertaining to each one of y'all's charts, because you guys are so, we're all individual and unique, and I appreciate those who do the birthday special, because not only am I getting to help you, but you're helping me, and I love it. So without further ado, let's talk a bit about Saturn retrograde. So this occurred on the 29th. It is going to be, Saturn is going to be retrograde until November 15th. This is interesting because Saturn is in Pisces, so it is ruled by Neptune, who's also in Pisces, and Neptune is going retrograde on the 3rd, so today. I have my days all mixed up. I had some crazy stuff happen in my neighborhood, and that's why this is getting posted on Wednesday instead of Tuesday like normal. So thank you all for your patience. Anyway, Saturn retrograde in the sign of Pisces. There's a couple of things that I want to reiterate, which is Saturn is about the structure of our consciousness, and Neptune is our consciousness. And so this is like this double signature that's going on in the transits, that this on a collective level is the need for a restructuring of the collective conscious, and the need to dissolve old dynamics that are not rooted in natural law or universal law or what's timeless in nature. This is on the collective level. It's one of the reasons why we're seeing all of the delusionary behavior go on in the collective, because it's wanting to be exhausted and to culminate and to disintegrate and to dissolve, so a new restructuring can take place. But on personal levels, this transit, Saturn and Pisces retrograde, yes, Saturn is about the structure of our consciousness. It is about us restructuring our consciousness on an individual level. It's about getting to what is most natural about us on a soul level. But this retrograde is definitely retrogrades, and this is good to keep in mind because Neptune is, stationing retrograde today as I'm talking about this. Retrogrades are relive, redo, repeat in order to resolve. Therefore, they have a Uranian vibe to them because it creates and induces an individuation process where we're throwing things off, right? The retrograde, it helps us to really expose what is needing to be liberated from. And for Saturn and Pisces, this revolves around, yes, the way we've structured reality, stemming from conditioning, but also it's really revolving around our ideals, right now we could be re-experiencing throughout this Saturn retrograde cycle, we could be re-experiencing dynamics that are confronting us with the totality of the truth of the reality that is occurring within each one of our lives. So I was thinking about this in my own life, right? Like, what is Saturn retrograde doing? I was talking to a friend at lunch today about my old relationship I had. And by the way, I have a North Node in Pisces, and I feel like this is a really great way to understand this Saturn and Pisces retrograde. When I was in that relationship, I was being idealistic, right? I was wanting to see the potential. It's something that all of us can do. And seeing the potential of something isn't rooted in the actual truth. It's only rooted in the potential, right? It's not being in the present moment. It's actually looking into the future and trying to control an outcome in the future. And so I was thinking about this relationship of mine and how, I've been in this kind of grieving process of really tapping into Pisces and allowing myself to feel what needs to come up. And part of the grieving process is like that whole experience of what could have been. And then I had to like laugh at myself because I was confronted with that is an illusion. It's Pisces. What could have been is an illusion. If it was going to happen, it would have happened. It would have been rooted in the actual truth, not the potential, not the, what could have been, what should have been. I mean, how many of us have had this experience when we leave a relationship of being confronted with that grief of, I wish this went a different way. And it's a human experience. But what I was confronted with was my own ideals and my own illusions of what I was making something up to be in my head, right? And projecting that expectation out. And that is this kind of dynamic that we can experience with Saturn and Pisces retrograde, is going inward in order to self-reflect and to objectify these dynamics of where we're all of a sudden confronted with, actually, that's an illusion. That was based in an ideal. It wasn't based in truth or reality, Saturn. It was based in something a fantasy that I was making up in my head, or this or that, right? So this is a time to confront that, because essentially me doing that has to deal with my own conditioning of my expectations of what a relationship should have been, or whatever. And so this is a time where we get to re-experience Pisces emotional dynamics, where we have structured a reality that isn't rooted in the actual truth. It's rooted in an illusion or a fantasy or an ideal that we have. And it's wanting us to eliminate any type of externalized expression of giving something an ultimate meaning, when really the only thing that we can truly give ultimate meaning to is our relationship to self and our connection to source, Pisces. So as we are confronted with our illusions, delusions, ideals, and confronted with the actual truth of what is occurring, some of us can experience crisis to do that if we're really resisting that dynamic. I know I have experienced that before. Again, North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo girl here. Whenever I would resist looking at the truth of something and kept resisting and only looking at the potential and giving it ultimate meaning, and it was delusionary, a crisis would happen in my life in order to shock me into acknowledging the actual truth, Pisces. So for some of us during this time, that can happen. And the thing about crisis is that it really truly does help us purge those dynamics. It helps us pull in Virgo because we learn how to surrender to the truth. And that can be very painful if we've really resisted this dynamic. For others, this is just a time period of exposing the truth of how we've structured our reality and being confronted with our ideals. And my suggestion is, when the truth is being confronted and you're seeing something, to not, Virgo, the polarity of Pisces, deny it. It can be really uncomfortable. You can be sad, you can experience grief. All of those emotions are needing to surface for sure in order to explore them, in order to release and to surrender. But it truly helps us to connect with ourselves in a more spiritual way whenever we acknowledge the truth, right? And then with Neptune ruling Saturn and also being retrograde now, there's this dynamic of when we're faced with the truth of how we've structured reality, Saturn and Pisces, and we're re-experiencing some dynamic to confront us with that, we're called to release and to surrender and to not try to control Saturn. And when we do that, we are then faced with a Piscean void. And Neptune retrograde calls for a deepening of our emotional dynamics and to trust the process and to have faith that when we face that void and we're not trying to fill it with something else, we can spiritualize. It deepens our connection to source, because if we are self-determined, Saturn, to face a void, to sit with the uncomfortableness of whatever has just left or whatever just disintegrated or is gone, and we surrender to that process. If we have the self-determination to do that and to self-reflect and to take accountability for the choices that led to that outcome, not only do we get to heal Neptune Pisces, but we cultivate a stronger relationship with source, because eventually the direction that we're meant to take comes to us. It's birthed into our consciousness in order for us to create a new structure within our consciousness. And this teaches us about trusting and having faith in source, because in an instant, that awareness can come to us, but it's not going to be instantaneous. Oh, I'm surrendering to this, and I'm willing to face the void. The void, Pisces, demands, especially Saturn and Pisces, demands that we sit with it. So for some people during this time period, they can experience depression or futility. Like, what is the point? I'm having faith and nothing's happening. And here's the thing, is it's asking us to continue to have faith and to continue to self-reflect. This is also where, well, let me talk about this. I've talked about this before, and I actually learned this when I was studying EA, and I'm forever grateful for this. Depression is not bad. We are conditioned to think that it is bad. Depression is a Capricorn Saturnian function, and the polarity of Capricorn is Cancer. So depression is actually pointing to the need to self-reflect, Capricorn, and get in touch with our pure emotion, Cancer, Pisces, in order to have that direct experience and cultivate wisdom. when we resist that because maybe we were conditioned to suppress that, or we couldn't talk about what we needed to talk about because we were in oppressive environments that told us to get over it or whatever. Eventually, depression can set in because it's actually pointing to, hey, go within. There's something on an emotional level that is wanting to have a direct, it's on a soul level, on an emotional level, there's a need for a direct experience of truly feeling that and allowing it to surface instead of suppressing it. The other dynamic I want to talk to you guys about with this retrograde cycle is that for some people, they could be confronted with what their escapist tendencies are. That is a function of Pisces, and people will utilize different things to escape their reality for various reasons. At the core of it, it's usually because one could be afraid of what they feel, what's going on emotionally. They're not wanting to self-reflect. So escapist tendencies, yes, they could be definitely substances, alcohol, drugs. It can also be working all the time, keeping busy in order to not have to look at what's going on inside. With these retrogrades, at some point, if you are someone who's doing any type of avoidance, escapist tendency, you're going to be confronted with it. And it can be in a Saturnian way, where we have Saturnian lessons dealing with that. That can mean maybe that if you're someone who's drinking and driving and you've been escaping your reality through drinking, you could all of a sudden get a DUI or a DWI. They call them DUIs where I live. And that would be a Saturnian lesson of needing to take responsibility. And through taking responsibility, one would be called to pull in the polarity of Pisces, Virgo, to self-improve through that crisis of, why did this happen? What was I avoiding? It can shock the system, right? And that's the nature of these retrogrades. They can also speed up our evolution through truly exposing what needs to be exposed in order to culminate those dynamics. And at the end of it all, everything that happens is something that we're calling in on a soul level. And if we take accountability and responsibility for our own healing, we can truly have healing. This energy can help us focus on what it is we need to focus on through exposing, through sitting with the void, through learning how to trust and to have faith. And so it's really important to not lose faith, because Pisces can also be nebulous and like foggy, you know, and that's the nature of also facing a void. It's just sitting with something. Pisces can also be like, this is all there is, you know, like it can really confront us with the void. And ultimately, that's where we have to nurture ourselves on an emotional level. So this is what I wanted to say about this Saturn Neptune retrograde. So Mercury has entered the sign of Leo, and it is now ruled by a sun in Cancer. And so as we are doing this very deep emotional work, where we're being confronted and we're looking at our ideals and the illusions and our own emotional dynamics, Mercury and Leo, thankfully, it can bring a bit of levity, but it's also asking for us to have the courage to speak about what it is that we need to speak about on an emotional level. It's asking us to speak from the heart, Leo, to be in self-love and self-dignity. And Mercury is opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So this is where we could be needing to throw off not speaking up and having the courage because we're in fear of judgment or what are people going to think whenever I'm being my unique self. So there's this need to have the Leonian courage to express how you need to express. This is also a time period where Mercury rules the hands. If you're someone who is just wanting to explore their emotions, Sun in Cancer, and to self-actualize through that, there could be, you know, more creative ways to do that, like picking up a paintbrush and painting. Even if you aren't a painter, it could help release the emotional dynamics. It could help you explore them. It could help you, it could be an act of self-love to do that, to be creative. This is also where we can creatively actualize through gaining knowledge about our inner relationship to self and our emotional dynamics. And we've got to remember that Mercury in Leo is now the ruler of Jupiter. And so this can really expand our inner awareness, our inner knowledge through understanding our own personal truths by exploring our emotional dynamics. It's where we can feel more authentic or learn more about how authenticity is linked to self-love and self-dignity. So there's all types of ways that this can surface, but there is a need to have courage. And if for your own healing, you've been someone who hasn't been speaking up, maybe something has been bothering you, maybe, especially I could see this with friends, with Mercury opposing Pluto and Aquarius dealing with friendships or extended family. Mercury in Leo says, for your own healing, you need to have the courage to just say what you need to say. So I want us to remember that during this time. Today, Venus is trine Saturn retrograde. Venus is ruled by, when this occurred, Venus is ruled by a moon in Gemini that's conjunct Jupiter. So this is a repeating signature of there can be a lot of emotional dynamics that are wanting to be exposed, where maybe we've been stuck in our ideals, and to look at maybe that's revolving around, I feel more secure whenever I'm only seeing the potential of something, or whenever I'm denying the truth of the reality of something. It's really wanting us to get into our emotionality and to nurture that as a way to heal. Through doing so, it helps us expand upon our inner knowledge through that direct experience of getting to the meat and the core of the emotional dynamics that are surfacing at this time. There's tons of cross currents of emotional dynamics that are surfacing for a lot of people right now with all of this watery energy. And this trine can really help us to understand what it is we're needing to nurture inside of ourselves, what it is we're needing to validate. It can also confront us with the truth about our own emotional reality, something going on inside of us. And then we have this Cancer new moon that's happening on the 5th. And for this, I'm going to share my screen with you all and to talk about this. I mean, this trine is still going on between, you know, Venus and Saturn during this, but let's talk about this. There's a few things. Number one, a new moon is a birthing process of new emotional dynamics that are wanting to surface so we can work with them. This new moon is also opposing Ceres, and Ceres is retrograde. So as emotional dynamics surface, Ceres is calling for us to self-reflect on them and to have an emotional maturation process through this self-reflection. It's asking us to look at what needs to be nurtured, what needs to be validated, what is coming up, where does that come from? Is it tied to some type of conditioning? Then this moon, new moon, is also trining Ceres ruler, Saturn, and Pisces retrograde. So this is really beautiful energy that helps us to understand how we've structured our emotional reality through self-reflecting and understanding what it is that needs to be healed within. This is a new cycle of emotional maturation, of emotional nurturing, of emotional validation, of cultivating security within. And this is done through self-reflection. It's also done through having the courage to expose what needs to be exposed. That's done through self-reflecting. Okay. There we go. The other dynamic I want to talk about is technically this new moon is square to the nodes. So on the one hand, well, actually, how do I want to articulate this? This new moon squaring the nodes is where our past, the South Node in Libra, is being brought up in the present moment in order for us to make new choices. That Ceres new moon opposition calls for us to self-reflect in order to discern what path do we want to take. Do we want to do the old and get our security from external sources, Libra? Or do we want to resolve this with the North Node and its ruler, Mars and Taurus? This means, which by the way, is sextile to this new moon, which means that if we focus on this North Node as the resolution, we get to initiate a brand new evolutionary cycle of self-reliance, Mars and Taurus, that is about our emotional self-reliance, how we nurture ourselves. That means that we're not externalizing. We're not doing Libra in a distorted way where we're needing to externalize, I need this person to fill me up. It's where you can fill yourself up on an emotional level through inwardly nurturing yourself. It creates self-reliance. And this is asking for us to have courage to go within the depths of our emotional reality that's seen between the trine to the moon to Saturn. And it's also speaking to, which by the way, Mars, the ruler of this resolution node to the new moon, is also sextile Saturn and Pisces retrograde. So this is where we can really understand what it is, the action, Mars, that we're needing to take in order to heal old emotional dynamics, in order to birth a new emotional reality through emotionally maturing at this time. So it really is about cultivating new patterns of emotional self-reliance, of throwing off any type of external source or any type of ultimate, where we've given ultimate meaning because it feels secure. And it's really, truly cultivating this dynamic. This is also really beautiful because I mean, this new moon is speaking so much to so many different things. Saturn, the ruler of Ceres, which is trine this new moon, and sextile, the resolution node's ruler, is also opposing Juno. And Juno's in Virgo. So this is really about purging these old emotional dynamics that seem to be recycling over and over and over again. So we're called to not deny our emotions during this time. We're called to really feel them, because also Juno is, again, it's sextile this new moon. There's so many sextiles and trines going on that are helping us to really integrate these deep emotional lessons so we can birth this new process of inwardly nurturing ourselves, being our own mother, our own father. It's asking for us to self-improve. That Juno is saying, hey, I'm ruled by Mercury and Leo. You need to have this self-love, self-dignity, to speak your truth, express yourself, but don't have an expectation of what is to occur, to surrender to any type of control, to surrender to any type of ideal, to let that dissolve so a new structuring of the consciousness can take place. And restructuring the consciousness can only take place if we are willing to evolve through our emotional body, to look at all of our emotional content. That's what this new moon and Cancer is asking for us, to have the courage to be emotionally self-reliant through self-reflection. This is also speaking to staying whole into ourselves. This Juno and Virgo, it's saying devote yourself to a worthy cause. And that worthy cause is learning to emotionally validate oneself in order to gain true inner security. True inner security is never going to be found outside of ourselves. That a person can come and go. A relationship can come and go. There's also always insecurity when we're in some type of externalized validation or emotional nurturing, because on a soul level, we know that could go away. Someone could have an accident, they could die, they could leave us, they could do this, they could do that. This new moon is saying, in order to heal and to restructure our consciousness, we need to truly start to cultivate emotional intelligence. That's part of Mercury and Leo being ruled by the sun that's conjunct this moon, symbolizing the new moon. But it's also about becoming emotionally self-reliant. No one can take your own self-reliance away. When we learn to inwardly validate ourselves and to become secure within ourselves, that doesn't go away. That can't be taken away. And that's part of this sextile between the new moon and Juno, and also the new moon trine to the Saturn, is that it's helping us to be our own authority through healing these dynamics, through facing the voids, through exploring our emotional reality, through creating and cultivating inner security, through throwing off the past and where our emotional security lied. Was it in a belief? Was it in a person? Was it in a relationship? Was it in part of your emotional security lied within your job? Those are all external things. And this new moon is saying, no, we need to find this within. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm a little bit slower at this today because I'm wanting to annotate this, because a lot of you guys like whenever I pull up a chart, and I'm not that fast at it. Usually I just let it rip when I'm synthesizing, but this is another thing, is Jupiter is in Gemini and it's ruled by this Mercury that it is sextile to. This is like, I feel, again, another beautiful energy of, which, by the way, Jupiter is also sextile this North Node. This energy really, really speaks to an ease of integration if we have the courage, Leo, to learn more about ourselves. And through that, it expands our consciousness. It helps us to cultivate more emotional intelligence through the direct experience of going within, through self-reflecting, through taking accountability and responsibility. So it's just this repeating signature over and over and over again. of the need to throw off any type of dynamic that is where we're externalizing some type of emotional validation or nurturing. This new moon is saying there is an immense amount, a wealth of emotional intelligence that can be grasped, that can be cultivated, that can help to nurture and facilitate in a healing process. It will help cultivate old ways that we've structured reality through our emotional dynamics, but it takes us looking at our conditioning and what has been learned that has created the patterns of the past, where how we got our security. Where did that security lie? Was it within us? Were we able to be self-reliant, or were we not? Did we use escapism to not look at this? All of this is coming up, and I love that this new moon is, you know, right after Saturn and Neptune retrograde, starting that cycle. This is a deeply internal process that can truly help us to evolve at a more rapid pace. But it says, in order to do that, you've got to get into the emotional body. So this is your weekly forecast. Again, my apologies that this is coming out on a Wednesday. There was craziness that happened in my neighborhood yesterday. And I could not be at my house because of it. I actually don't want to go into it because it is could be very triggering for some people. It didn't have anything to do with me, but it did have to deal with someone in my neighborhood, and it was a really big ordeal. So it was really out of my control. And I didn't want to do a forecast whenever I was dealing with something that was out of my control. So again, I think that's all I have to mention, not about this week, but anything that's upcoming. One thing I will say, in October, I am going to be doing the conference for the JWG Association. My lecture is going to be on Cassandra, and it is called Cassandra, Can You Hear Me Now? And this lecture is going to go over the archetype of Cassandra and how we can utilize this in a natal chart to recover our inner knowledge, our inner voice, our personal truths, and the courage to speak. So if you are wanting to sign up for that lecture, there's an early bird special going on. I know on the JWGAEA.org website, I hope I said that right. I will link it in the description. You can get $100 off the whole conference pass. It's an online conference. There's tons of information, or if you want, you can just sign up for my lecture and pay for that. If you sign up for the whole conference, if you use the coupon code EARLYBIRD, you will get $100 off. So I wanted to mention that. I'm really excited about talking about Cassandra. If you are a subscriber to this YouTube channel, you know I talk about her a lot. And I'm really excited to teach on this. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart. And yes, I think that's all that I have to say. So to wrap this up, the prayer for this new moon is to have the courage to express what you need to express and to go within and explore whatever emotional dynamics are coming up. The need to face a void if you have just lost something or something's just disintegrated, the need to self-reflect. This really can cultivate, it's starting this whole evolutionary cycle of making new choices in order to cultivate more emotional self-reliance. And the past few weeks have really been setting us up for this. So I love you all, and I will see you soon.